Welcome back to the Do Hard Things Today podcast. It's Kevin Harrison here with my co-host Jed Blackwell. We're helping you optimize your life in 4 different areas: fitness, family, finances, and faith. And we have a special treat for you, introducing something new into the podcast. Actually, we have a returning guest that was on our podcast probably a year ago, but through watching some of her stuff on social media and seeing what she's doing and just how it kind of it just mirrors some of the things that we really believe in. We're going to have Dr. Stephanie Mahacek. She's going to come back on, and she's actually going to be a regular contributor. We're going to let her talk a little bit about herself in a second, but somewhat of a nutrition expert is what she does. And she has agreed to be a part of this and to answer your questions, because man, we're on here talking about a lot of stuff, and we have opinions, but we're actually going to have a professional that can help us walk through and navigate some of the things that we talk about, and a lot of our listeners ask questions about, and that is nutrition, and specifically for those of us that are running or exercising, different things. And she just got just a wealth of knowledge on those things. So, Jill, we're going to welcome in Dr. Stephanie Mahacek, and we want, am I saying that correctly? Number one, I think I'm saying that. Yes. Okay. Well, I heard it called out. Jed, we were at a local 5K.
Oh, wow.
Like, I don't know, a week or two ago. And it was like a Mahacek party. It was like they were calling out the winners of every age group. And I don't know how many age groups y'all won, but there was like, every time Jonathan, it was a little Faith for Fathers 5K, he was calling out. It was like there was another Mahacek. I don't know how many were running.
Well, I'm going to say this real quick. If you don't know how to pronounce mine, you better figure it out before you get to the finish line of a 5K, because you ain't going to hear it there.
Yeah, Blackwell's a little bit easier than
you're not going to hear it. You might hear it at McDonald's. You're not going to hear it at the finish of a 5K.
Yeah, that's right. So they were able to show off that morning by collecting all the medals, but Doc, the good Doc, hey, thank you for doing this, because we get a ton of just questions. We get emails in on the Facebook groups and different things, just talking about asking all kind of questions about nutrition. And of course, if we don't have anything else, we've got opinions on here. But sometimes you need somebody to come in and kind of level the playing field. That's a true expert, really knows what she's talking about. So we appreciate you coming in and being a part of this and agreeing to be a regular contributor. And, I think it's going to be a really, really cool journey with you. And with that said, I want to give you just a second. Tell us about yourself. Tell us your background. Tell us about Food Factor Nutrition. And then I want to follow that up by hearing about this cool little thing you're going to be doing. So tell us about the good doctor and what you're all about.
Yes. Well, first of all, I am so excited I'm so honored that you asked me to be here and to be a returning guest, because, I had so much fun the first time we recorded. And I remember the first time we recorded, I actually was coming off of pneumonia, and I was trying my hardest to not hack and cough into the microphone. And when I got into the parking lot after we got done recording, I unleashed. I was coughing the rest of the way home, but I was like, oh, thank God I didn't do it.
We would have never known.
Yeah, never guessed.
Yep.
Oh, good. Okay. I was holding it back. But yeah, so thank you again for bringing me back here. I'm so excited to talk about nutrition, and I love getting nutrition questions. I get them all the time. I'll get text messages from random people. I'll get text messages from my family, everybody. And a lot of times there's a common theme, but sometimes it's just like, hey, I saw this on TikTok. Is that true? And I'm like, absolutely. Let me look into it. Let's figure this out. And a lot of times it's like, partial true. And here's why. So I love it. Bring them on. I'm happy to, forward questions to me, all of that. But my background is, so I have an undergrad in exercise science. I actually started out in more of like the fitness space and the health and wellness kind of field. And then I decided to get a master's in nutrition. And throughout the course of my master's degree in nutrition, I was like, I'm not done yet. I want to learn more. So when I got to the end of that coursework and all of that, I was like, yep, no, I'm going on. I gotta keep going with this. There's too much more to learn. It's a constantly changing field. I just need to know more, and I want to dive deeper into certain things. And so I went on and got my doctorate in clinical nutrition. And throughout the course of those few years of getting that degree, I was able to really specialize and hone my focus in on specifically female athletes and just different nutrient needs throughout the month and throughout different life cycles and throughout different, sport-specific training schedules, and just kind of the shed light on the dark realm that is women's health that we just are not getting a lot of attention on, although it is becoming more and more prevalent, which is awesome, that more research is coming out and more studies are being done and more attention is being given to women athletes. But, at the time, a few years ago, that wasn't the case. And so that is where I spent a lot of my time for my doctoral training is female athletes. And so I love working with men too, but, the females are, they deserve their moment as well. So, and then, yes, Food Factor Nutrition is a business that I started back in 2019. So it's my private practice. I do a lot of work with athletes, but also with pre and postmenopausal women who are kind of navigating metabolic changes during this time. I've worked with, kids. I've worked with older individuals. I've worked with teams. I've worked with just individual athletes of different sports. So it's been an awesome journey, and I love the different array of people that I've been able to talk with.
Well, it's interesting. You talk about female nutrition specifically, and that is one of those. You said a couple of things. Number one, I'll say this, that I've read more about female nutrition than most men probably have, because I have 4 daughters and then a wife. So I have 5 females that are, one of them's not living in our house anymore, but and it is I'll say this, and you mentioned it a second ago that, hey, I saw this on TikTok. I think especially in female nutrition, and you can speak to this, I think it's a real, man, it's like a minefield out there. You see, it's like, hey, I saw this on TikTok. Is this true? And it's just these random people out there that are, quote unquote, trying to become fitness or nutrition influencers, and they're just saying these random things. And it's like, this works. And then you see a next TikTok, and it's like the exact opposite thing. And so I think it's am I accurate in that? I mean, is it especially for the females out there, because that's the demographic is more with TikTok and those kind of things. It trends more towards the female market with all the videos and those kind of things. Is that accurate, that it's kind of a minefield that women are having to walk through to figure out, okay, what do I really need to be doing at all these stages in my life?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely. Well, I think it can be both. I think it be male and female. I mean, my algorithm is obviously set for more women-related things, but men have sent me snapshots or forwarded things or different articles that they've seen or whatever that are targeted to them, and I'm like, no, that is not true at all. But it's the same. It's the same concept. It's kind of like, if you don't do this, you will get that, or if you need this in order to get that result, or whatever. So females definitely have it from multiple different angles, and especially different products that are trying to be sold to cure all of our problems and all of that. I think females are more likely to spend money on that, which is why a lot of the marketing and a lot of the flashiness kind of gears towards women. But men are getting it too. They are getting it in different forms. You need this peptide, and you need that supplement, and you need this testosterone booster, and you need whatever. They're getting it too. They may be less likely, and I don't have the stats on it, but they may be less likely to actually spend money on it when females might be, because they're just at their wits' end looking for a way to solve their problems.
Yeah, and I think we've as we go through this series, I think having one, and doing one specifically just talking about females and what are the different things, and we could have some guests on. Even my wife, who has recently started back her running journey, and dealing with just all the information that's out there, and with these stages in your life of there's these stages that women go through that are they just have different needs at those different points, and there's so much information out there, and so much of it is contradictory to what you're. I mean, it's just how do you work through all that? And I think maybe doing, maybe the next episode we do, we can ask for some questions from our audience and get those to specifically address these different, different spans of life that females go through, and that there are distinct different needs at all those times of their lives.
And
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say part of it too. It's like the reason why there's so much contradiction out there is because one thing might work for one person in a specific phase of life, and the other thing might not. It might not work for this person because of layers of other things that are going on. So that's why it seems so contradictory, and people often, I just got off a call with somebody 10 minutes ago that was like, I'm just so confused on what I should do. And it's just, that's part of it, because people are willing to promote and highlight and sell things that worked for them, which probably maybe did or did not work for them, but it might not work for you because you have other contributors or other things that are going on, or some sort of thing that it doesn't work for that. And so that's why it's so confusing. And then in contrast to that, you're like, well, I'm going to do the complete opposite, and that works for me, but it's not going to work for you. So it is a lot, because it's not made, there's no one thing that's going to be helpful for everybody. You have to take personalization into it. You have to take genetics, you have to take lifestyle, you have to take current, habits and all of that into consideration to understand if something is going to work for you.
Is that one of the biggest kind of battles that you fight, getting people to understand that there's not a blanket yes and a blanket no?
It is something I bring up with everybody, because I wouldn't say it's a battle, because I feel like once I bring that up and we have a conversation around it, I feel like a lot more people relax.
Okay.
They're like, okay, it's not just me. It's not, there's this thing worked for my sister and this thing worked for my friend and it didn't work for me. There must be something wrong with me. No, it wasn't designed to work for you. It was designed and then it happened to work for somebody else. But here's why it's not working for you. So and here's what could work for you. So let's figure that out. So I think there is definitely a conversation I have with almost everybody. And I think it almost brings relief to some people.
Yeah. And that's something that I think we all at different times, and a lot of that is, it's like everything else in life, is going to be dependent on your goals. There are people, there's people that are looking for, hey, I just want to feel better. I feel sluggish. I just want to feel better. Here are some things you can do. You probably also deal with people that are really, truly trying to, you start talking about life optimization. They're trying to completely optimize and refine their lives. And there's probably different things for those different people. Correct. I mean, it's all going to be based on the goals that they want, as far as the inputs that you're putting in. Basically, what you're putting into your body is going to affect, the way you feel and the way you perform and the other things. It's what's your end goal, and would be the driving factor.
Yeah, I mean, the end goals are definitely important as far as how we approach something, but also your current foundation is equally, if not more important, because you cannot build your goals and get your goals if your foundation is cracked.
Yeah.
So that's where I start with a lot of people, whether you're an elite marathoner or, just somebody who's just focused on getting off the couch and starting to get more active again. Your foundation still matters, no matter where you're at and what your goal is.
Yeah, and you can't skip over, just like with running. You can't skip over. So many people get frustrated in their early stages of running because they're just like, I want to get faster. I want to go out and run 400-meter intervals on the track. I see people doing that on TikTok. Shouldn't I be doing that? And it's like, listen, those will come one day if you put in the work, but you have got to build that foundation and that base, and it's probably the same concept with our, with our nutrition and everything coming off of, because a lot of people I'm 53, and you take a lot of people that are in that 40 to 60 category, and they are, they're getting back off the couch, or they're starting to run. Running is becoming and then the high rocks and all these different things that people are doing. Well, you can't, when you're 22 years old. Yeah, you can just get off the couch and go out and start running, or and your body's resilient enough to do it. Well, if you're going to do these things, as you age, there's different requirements. There's different things you need to do, and you probably run into that a lot with people coming off, that have been sitting on the sidelines for several years.
Yes, recovery is definitely a bigger conversation with somebody more in like the 40 to 60 age group. They're talking about proper recovery nutrition, proper recovery from your workouts, like actually taking rest days and all that, because we need it. I mean, so does somebody in their 20s, but we're more likely to need it a little bit more aggressively when we are in that kind of older age group.
Yep. All right. So let's jump into this thing. Today, we're going to be specifically talking about running and how your nutrition, affects your running at different times, and also the heat. My goodness, where we are. For those of you that listen, we broadcast from the upstate of South Carolina. We're halfway between Charlotte and Atlanta, and it would probably at this point in time, you'd have to really look to find a hotter place on the planet than we are right now.
Yeah.
And we tell people here that it's hot, but at least it's humid. I mean, it is brutal out there. Even when you're getting out and running early, I was running super early the other morning, and I mean, I was done with my run before the sun even cracked out, and I was still, when I got back to my car, I was wringing wet.
It's miserable
just from the humidity. And so let's talk a little bit about this heat. And, and I think, some people might think, well, nutrition really doesn't play a factor in heat and what you're doing. But I think it can. And so as we're dealing with the heat and dealing with the humidity and just what are some things that we can be doing to, number one, protect ourselves, number two, nourish ourselves, and number three, you mentioned recovery, but as you well know, there's no such thing as a singular workout. What I mean by that is every workout you have, every run you have affects the next one down the road. So you can't take these things by themselves. So let's talk about the heat and how do we deal with the heat and humidity and what are things we can put in our body, all those different things. Let's have this discussion because it is what people are talking about right now is, man, it is so hot. My wife, she went and did a workout and waited this morning. She waited about an hour and a half later than she was planning on going. And she got out and she called me after it was over and she was like, oh, it was miserable. Said I had to cut out 2 intervals. It was just miserable. I mean, I was going to ruin myself for the next 2 runs I had. So let's discuss these things and figure out how do we help people deal with this heat, be safe and maybe put the right things in their body to help them overcome some of these things.
Yeah. I mean, I was out there this morning too at 5:30 or 6, and it was like a damp armpit out there. It was gross. So I get it. It's miserable. So with the heat, for one, I have heard, and I am not a running coach, but I have heard that summer training you can add at least 1 to 2 minutes even onto some of your paces. So summer pace is different than fall and winter paces. And I have taken that I have definitely applied that to my training because it's so easy to be like, man, I used to run, a 7:30 mile and now I can't even do a 9 without it just struggling. But that's okay. It's okay to slow the paces down because your body is now dealing with cooling yourself and, extra humidity and heat and all of that and trying to evaporate water and trying to get rid of some of the extra body heat so you don't cook your organs while you're running. There's a reason that it's harder. I also want to say, because I feel like this is such important information to know and I don't want to skip over it, for females who are actively having a cycle, when you are in luteal phase, which is the 2 weeks prior to your period, you have it's harder on your body. Heat, you're more sensitive to heat at that particular time. So that means that if it's 90 degrees out, it's going to feel like it's 110 because our bodies are just, with the hormone fluctuations, it just makes everything feel harder because of the heat. So when the heat is already high, it makes it feel that much harder. So if you happen to be running and you're like, I cannot believe how hard this is, I must be, regressing, I'm getting worse with my running, it could be the phase of your cycle that you're in.
Well, I hate to interrupt you, but do you think it's important for females to track? Now, they all know when their cycle is, but to track these different times and to be very aware of what happens during these different times with their body, because you can see it. I think the indicator, especially for runners, the indicator is heart rate. Your heart rate. I mean, you will be running at a pace, and your heart rate will be a lot higher. And I don't understand why was my heart rate so much higher? And I was running this easy run this is an easy run, and my heart rate was higher than when I was running this harder long run. And it could be because of when it was in their cycle.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, definitely be tracking. If you're not tracking, there's so many apps that make it so easy now to track. I mean, even the iPhone has the health app on the iPhone that comes with it. I mean, it has a cycle tracker. So any of them are really good just to understand like what phase you're in, when your cycle occurs, all of that stuff, the duration, are you skipping cycles? All of that is vital information for women to know. But yes, but with the heart rate too, I find it interesting that all of the heart rate data is based on men's physiology. So female physiology, yes, it will show like when I run, like let's say it was at 180 beats. Okay, but that might say like, oh, you're off the charts, you're way in zone 5, you're all this, it's terrible, you're not going to, make progress with your anaerobic training or whatever. Well, that data is based on men. So maybe higher heart rates at females at different phases in the cycle is still aerobic. So for females, you have to take some of that heart rate data with a grain of salt and just understand that, it might be harder at different phases, specific luteal phase in the last kind of 2 weeks of your cycle. And then all of a sudden, when you're in follicular phase, you feel amazing and you feel strong and you feel all these things and you feel like you can run a marathon and it's easier. So it can be drastic like that for some women. And two, I mean, I know we're talking about running, but when you're talking about working out in general, different phases of the month, you will make better strength gains because progesterone, which is one of the hormones that females have that fluctuates throughout the month, it is very catabolic. It actually breaks down muscle tissue. So to think that you're going to be able to make strength gains in the gym with strength training and all of that during a specific phase of the cycle when the progesterone is highest, it's counterproductive. It's actually going to be more detrimental. You might be more prone to injury in that phase just because your own hormones are working against you. And then you add the strength training, which is very taxing and all of that. So that to understand what cycle you're in as far as your training block goes, it's crucial. We should. If you're not yet tracking your cycle, you definitely should be.
Yeah, and if you're not aware of that, I got to imagine that's got to bring a great deal of frustration. When you're putting in the same efforts and something is holding you back. Well, it could be a physiological thing that you're just not aware of. And I think it's going to be a great podcast, and I'm sure we're going to get a ton of questions coming off of this podcast specifically for the female audience. And you mentioned going slower and your paces, and I think it's one of the things that we all battle. The whole Strava and training, whatever you're using. But, whenever that run uploads and it's a minute to a minute and a half slower per mile, sometimes, we fight that. So we want to push through. It's like, well, I'm just going to run harder because this is my pace. Well, when it's blazing hot outside and humid, your just body physically cannot do it, without just wrecking it. And I love all the data stuff, but sometimes the data can cause us to make bad decisions, with our training. I don't know if you ever battle that, but I know.
Yeah. It's hard.
Yeah. It's
is hard not to.
It
well,
is.
And data is data. We apply human emotions to the data. We make it meaningful.
Yes.
We make it mean something that doesn't necessarily mean. It's just numbers. Yeah. It's just what occurred. And we slap a value of emotional value onto it. Yeah. It's not the computer doing it. So.
And it's frustrating because sometimes it just lies to you because like your Garmin or train, you'll look at your Garmin and it's like you just killed a workout and you're freaking killing it. And you look down and it tells you that you're being unproductive today. And I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not being unproductive. Or you'll wake up feeling like $1 million, ready to go attack your run, and you look on Training Peaks and it says that your fatigue is high. And you're like, oh, well, I'm supposed to be tired then, so let me let me battle in my mind. I mean, again, I think the data's, I think there's great points of this data, but some of the stuff, I mean, you can dig so deep in it. And I have conversations with people, and we're talking, and they're asking me, like, what's your, your HRV and your VO2 max and this and that. And I'm just like, I'm sometimes sitting there thinking, I was like, you do know that we're not like elites. I mean, we're out. I don't know how important my VO2 max is right now, if that's something I need to be focusing on, or if I just need to be focusing on getting the miles in and being consistent. But my goodness, you can go down rabbit holes with it. All right. We were chasing a rabbit. Let's get back to this heat thing. What else can we do? I mean, even from a nutrition, are there things, because you have the event, which is whether you're running, CrossFit, whatever kind of exercise you're doing, you have that event that's going on. And so that's obviously during, but all during your day, whenever we're in the middle of summer and we're dealing with the heat and the humidity all the time, because it's not just during the exercise. I mean, you go outside and if you're just outside for 5 minutes or so, you come back in and you just feel like, oh, I just feel zapped. Are there specific foods? Let's talk electrolytes. Let's talk, with the how much fluid do we need to be taking in? What do we need to be eating? Before, during, and after a run, just in the heat. We're going to talk about fueling in a second. Of fueling for runners with pre-workout, intra-workout, then post-workout, but specifically with the heat that we're dealing with right now, what tips or things would you give out there for people?
So one of the things I see the most, and we'll get into like the electrolytes and all that stuff, but one of the things I see the most when it's hot like this is that it makes people not want to eat. A lot of people experience kind of more of like an anorexic type of situation where their appetite is just not there because it's just so hot. So that's the number one thing that I want to say is make sure that you're still getting enough food, especially if you're doing long runs or if you're doing really hard training blocks or if you're, doing very extensive workouts. You still need those nutrients in, but it may just feel like you may have to be a lot more intentional with it and just understand that it may have to come in different forms. And what I mean by that is it may not look like I'm going to have a full meal because I just could not stomach a full meal right now. You may have to then focus on getting liquid, like protein shakes or, very purposely crafted smoothies or something that's more liquid that is easier to kind of fit in your stomach. So that's the number one thing, is making sure that you're not slowly tapering off and not getting enough fuel just because of the fact that you're not being triggered by your body. Like you may not feel hungry when it's this hot out.
Yeah. Why is that? Why, physiologically, why is that? Because you nailed it. I mean, nobody's going to go, this is not the time when you're craving a big juicy cheeseburger and fries. I mean, it's when it's this hot. Why is that? What's your body? Why does your body do that?
Well, I mean, I think it's because your body is so focused on reducing heat, because that's the number one thing, is that your body cannot be above a certain temperature. There's damage that is done to your body when in cells in your body when your body is a certain temperature. So it's diverting blood flow. It's diverting, it's changing some of the hormones in your body to help lower your core temperature. And when that happens and different stressors, that is a stressor on your body. And so I don't have the exact science as far as like how much it does, but I would assume that it raises cortisol levels slightly because it is a fight or flight situation. It's a stressor. It's a stressful situation when cortisol levels elevate or different stress hormones elevate and different blood flow is diverted from the gut or from, certain signaling hormones and stuff like that. It's diverted to help cool off the system. Your appetite is lowered because your body doesn't think it needs food right now. It thinks it needs to lower its body temperature. That's the number one priority. So it's diverting resources to do that.
So like with fruit, like a lot of, if you go to a lot of group runs and different things, you'll see, you'll see the bananas, the watermelon, those kind of things. Are these things that we need to be, especially as it is super hot? I mean, are there specific foods and things that are good to eat that can give us? I know watermelon is supposed to be one that helps you hydrate as well. Are there some things that are? I know something that we tried. I actually learned this from my daughter's cross country runner. is we'll buy grapes, and then we'll take like liquid IVs or some kind of electrolyte and element, whatever it may be, and we'll sprinkle that over those grapes and then freeze them, and then they're kind of like little frozen electrolyte grapes
that's awesome.
that you can eat. After it's hot. Again, when you come in and you don't want to eat, you can at least eat some of these cold things. What are some little maybe hacks that we can that kind of trick you into making sure that you're getting in some calories and also those foods that can also hydrate you?
Yeah, so hydrating foods are so important. One, because they're lighter. So again, back to the appetite thing, you might be better able to tolerate, say, like a big thing of watermelon or cantaloupe than you are like a big burger or something like that. So they do provide some energy, some nutrients. They provide, in the situation where it's like watermelon, strawberries, cantaloupe, peaches, those are like 90% water in their content. So it's very hydrating, getting that water molecule into your body. But it also has vitamins in it. It has antioxidants in it. It has vitamin C. Those things are all very supportive for, one, your immune system, but two, to help with inflammation and help with recovery from some of the byproducts that are produced when our muscles are working hard. So things like peaches, cucumbers, celery. Celery is like 95 or 96% water. So is cucumbers. I mean, it doesn't always have to be fruit, especially for people who maybe are pre-diabetic or dealing with diabetes issues. You can get it. Zucchinis, tomatoes, celery, bell peppers. One of my favorite things to do when I go and talk with kids groups is talk about eating your water. And I'm like, can you eat your water? They're like, yeah, if it's ice. I'm like, no. And so I'll take a bell pepper that I've cut and I'll kind of bend it back, and it squirts like a squirt gun because there's so much water in there. I'm like, this is what you're getting when you eat bell peppers. So it's veggies, fruit, those types of things are very, very hydrating and very, very good because they also provide electrolytes, which are the nutrients that we're trying to get in the first place. So vitamins, all the potassiums and the calciums and all those electrolytes that we tend to try and drink in like Gatorades or whatever, you can get them through food, and it can be better tolerated, and you get other nutrients through those as well, through those types of foods. So having those foods before and throughout the day, so depending on when you're going to have your run or knowing that your event is in the afternoon or whatever, having those throughout the day in addition to drinking some water, that can help to pre-hydrate you. Having some of the races will have orange slices or maybe watermelon, during the race, you can have some of that as well if your stomach tolerates it. And then for sure afterwards, I just brought a big thing of watermelon to my run club on Monday because it was 90 degrees and it was awesome. And we actually, adding a little bit of sea salt to that watermelon too boosts that electrolyte power as well. It helps get the water into the cells with that sodium. So lots that you can do as far as like hydrating foods, but you don't always have to just rely on some of these Gatorades and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. So we've dealt with the heat, and just for our listeners, just be aware of the heat, and especially when it is brutally hot like it is now. I mean, we all know when if it's we laughed on one of the other couple of podcasts ago. We were talking about the Dopey Challenge that I go down and do every January. Yeah. This past January, during the marathon portion of that challenge, they actually cut the course short. I was sitting on the bus about to go back to the resort, and I got an alert that they were cutting the course short by about 3 miles. They cut out one little section of it because of the heat, and it was like 85 degrees. And there were a couple of us on there that were kind of looking just like, man, 85 degrees, that's not that hot. But we're we're on one of the hottest places in the planet. But it is, when you're, what that point is of whenever your body will tell you. If you'll listen, your body will tell you. It'll always tell you, okay, this is in that spot where I've got to really start adjusting because of the heat and the humidity. I mean, your body acclimates to different things. So we've covered that. Now let's talk about generally when we're talking about fueling. Specifically for runners, but other athletes, a lot of people, are now in the high rocks, CrossFit, do those kind of things along with running, biking, swimming, whatever that may be. Let's talk about fueling because there's a lot of confusion. about how you should fuel, and a lot of buzzwords out there. And again, if you watch TikTok, people will tell you, stay away from at all costs, stay away from carbohydrates and simple sugars, and others will tell you the only way to fuel your body is with carbohydrates and simple sugar and those kind of things. I mean, there's just a lot of information out there. So let's try to break down some myths and talk about how do people make these determinations for themselves. And so I want to start with, we were talking about foods to hydrate. Let's talk about maybe some foods that you feel like all runners should be incorporating into their diets. What are some things that are good foods for runners to be regularly consuming?
Carbohydrates.
No, I thought they were bad.
So not the devil.
No, my God. If you are an athlete, you need to eat carbohydrates. Well, you just do. Now, there's very few times where I would tell somebody, and that's usually based on a medical condition, that I would say, like, okay, we need to be a little bit more restrictive around carbohydrates. If you are a runner, if you are a biker, if you're a distance athlete, if you're a power athlete, any of those, you need carbohydrates. And the talk, it's almost like that's just no question. You need carbohydrates. But now the conversation is when and how much are you going to be getting those carbohydrates? So simple sugars, yes, they are carbohydrates. So these are things, like even candy and stuff like that. Like that can serve a purpose, but you just have to be intentional and understand what purpose it's serving. If it's serving like an emotional purpose, sometimes that's needed. If it's, I give the example of my soccer players a lot. Like I have told a lot of the soccer players to carry with them gummy bears, because when they are, we had a soccer game last night. It was 93 degrees out at 6 p.m. They were taking hydration breaks, but some of them were just dragging because their blood sugar tanked. And what better way, do they need to have a bowl of oatmeal and wait 45 minutes for it to increase their blood sugar? No, they need an instant lift of their sugar. So that is where some of those simple sugars, those quick absorbing nutrients and foods can come into handy. And it's a quick little, here's a gummy bear, have a couple of those, whatever, and off you go. And it's just enough to bring that blood sugar up. So
Jen, I think she just said that my favorite candy of all time, Sour Patch Kids. That's a part of the
I heard
five food groups.
I heard Nerds gummy clusters, but okay.
Yeah,
Nerd clusters. They are prevalent now on the race scene.
Those things are so good.
Those little packs. People stuff them in their run belts now, and they're like, I got my Nerd clusters.
And I'm gonna stop you here and make you clarify, because here's what some people that would be. This is we all hear things the way we want to hear them. I might listen to this podcast and be like, oh, that I was listening to that lady, and she sounds super smart. She's a doctor. She's using all these big words, and she just said, hey, gummy bears are actually a good food to be eating.
Right.
And so let's dive a little bit deeper into this carbohydrate thing. And you said, okay, so there's this scale. They've been called a million different things: complex carbs, good carbs, low glycemic carb, all these different things. And so there's this continuum of carbohydrates from, I guess you would start with, green vegetables all the way over to Sour Patch Kids. All right. Mm-hmm. So explain to us on that big continuum how all of these things go into the life of an athlete. And I think there's because I was having this conversation with my wife, and she'll be listening, and she will fuss whenever I say this, but she likes to get some of her health information from TikTok. And, a lot of those TikTok ladies on there say it's sugar. Simple sugar is just horrible. Well, I had her, she was doing some interval work, and I said, this is what I want you to do. I want you to drink this drink, and it's one of First Form's drinks that and it's pure sugar. I mean, it's sugar, electrolytes, those kind of things. I want you to drink this 30 minutes before you start running. Take it to the track with you. Have another little bottle of it, and when you stop your interval, take a swig. And push back, well, I bet that's just sugar, and I'm not supposed to eat that, blah, blah. Well, she went out and killed it. Felt great doing it, during that time. Well, you're not going to be drinking that, at night, or just, hey, I want to drink, I'm just going to drink this. It's probably not. Explain how these things work and how these carbohydrates work for a runner, and in these different points of time, again, whether it's just middle of the day or in the morning, what you should be eating completely away from your workout, and then maybe getting into that window of, within a couple of hours of your workout, and then during your workout, and then that period that we've all heard different things about after working out. Is it 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour? What needs to be? So how do carbohydrates fit in that whole picture for us? I know that's a lot, but I think it's important.
That's all right. Yeah, we'll break it down. Okay, so carbohydrates. You got your simple and you got your complex. So simple, and essentially what those mean is how quickly it breaks down in your body and raises your blood sugar. To take it a step back even more, blood sugar, or glucose, is the amount of sugar molecules or glucose molecules that are floating in your bloodstream at that particular given moment. That's different than A1C, which is the long-term measurement of how your body processes sugar. But glucose readings are what is in your body in that particular moment when you draw your blood. So simple carbohydrates will raise. It's fast absorbing. They get broken down. The molecules are weaker, and they get broken down faster in your blood system and send sugar or glucose into your bloodstream faster. So those are things like soda, candy, white breads, things like that. Complex it's a longer chain of molecules, to get really sciencey on you. It's just a longer conglomeration of molecules that takes a little bit more effort and takes a little bit more time for your body to break down and enter into your bloodstream. So those are things like oatmeal, starchy veggies, whole grains, that type of stuff.
Okay.
Both serve a purpose. Both are needed. We don't want to rule out either one just because of how our bodies break it down. They both are needed. It's just when they're needed is important to understand, and how in what role does it play throughout your day. So for many, especially kids, teenagers, younger athletes, they tend to gravitate towards the simple carbohydrates like the candy and the sodas, and because one, they taste incredibly sweet. We could dive into sugar and the amount of sugar in certain things and all that. But it raises that blood sugar up quickly. It gives them energy quickly, and they tend to crave that more. It's not that those are bad. Those are just, they are what they are. And we break it down how we break it down. But we're using, in some people's diets, it's become too prevalent in the form of what they need it for. So simple would be what you would want to have maybe 30 to 60 minutes before a workout. So if you're going to have, like a half a bagel or something like that, like a white bread bagel or whatever, half a bagel, or and they can also be used in form of like during a workout or during a long training session to help if you're dragging and your energy is feeling like you're crashing and all that, and you're struggling. That can be the difference. Sometimes that can bring you back, and because you're raising up that blood sugar. Because if you think about it, and I like to get a little sciencey, and I like to just paint the picture of what's going on, because I feel like that helps people put things into context. So when your muscles, all your muscle cells require glucose. That's how we produce energy. You can get into ATP and all that, but that's how your body produces energy, is through glucose in the cells. So when you're working out and you're exerting your muscles and your muscle cells are requiring energy to perform, it draws it from the blood. It draws it from our bloodstream. So if we don't have enough blood sugar or glucose in our bloodstream to help fuel the muscles, eventually, there are some stores and all that, but eventually we get to the point where we're depleted. There's nothing left. And that's when you start getting fatigue and all that starts setting in. So to rapidly bring those again, just like I just mentioned, are you going to have a bowl of complex carbohydrates while you're on a run? No, you need instant energy. You don't need those complex carbs that take forever to break down and put the glucose into your bloodstream. You need the simple ones that are fast absorbing and get that glucose in where it needs to go and into the cells where they need to go.
So let me.
That's where
you got a real smart person talking now. Now I want to, for dummies, I want to ask you this question and see if I am reading this right.
Okay.
So when if I am watching Netflix and decide, hey, I want to have some Sour Patch Kids, and and the danger is you start eating a couple of Sour Patch Kids and then you end up eating the whole little pack of them. And I feel really good right then for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. I don't know what that feeling is, but it just feels good.
It's dopamine. It's your happy, good chemicals flooding your system.
Then I start feeling really sluggish after having those. So I am assuming my blood sugar is spiking and then it is crashing back down. Is that a fair representation of what's happening? Most likely, yeah. Okay. Right.
And it's not necessarily, yes, it is that, but it's also that dopamine going back into your brain.
So whenever I am running, and maybe on a long bike ride or something, and I will take, because I'd heard the same thing, that you can buy all these fancy sport beans and other stuff, but really if you're taking in electrolytes through your drink, if you like Sour Patch Kids, eat some Sour Patch Kids. You're just getting that quick acting sugar in your body. Well, during those times, I will get that. I will feel almost the energy come back. It kind of breaks through that fatigue or whatever's happening in your body. But then you don't have that crash. Is that because that is raising my glucose levels and my body is, because I am running or biking, it is burning through that and using that as fuel, thus not the crash? Is that accurate?
You could still have the crash. It may not be as noticeable, though, because, it may look like fatigue then, because you may, depending on when you have that simple carb during your workout, maybe your workout is over, maybe the race is over, and it's just, now it looks like, you're just tired because of the race is over. But most likely you're getting a recovery meal afterwards. Yeah. So maybe it crashes a little, but it's not as extreme because you're not, you're still getting something else, or you're also continuously getting some more carbohydrates through the drinks. Yep. The electrolyte drinks. They have carbs in there too. So maybe you're not crashing as much because you still have like a steady stream going in.
So would your argument be on these simple sugars? And we're talking about things that are just, that could be soft drinks, that could be candy, that could be any of those. We all kind of know what simple sugars are. Would your argument be for those that those need to play a very limited role outside of that window that we're working, that we're exercising? Is that what I hear you saying? And that we should utilize, but we can they are. I think what you said was they have their place.
They have their place.
Is that where they have their place, where they need to live for an athlete?
That for the majority of people, I think if you're going to actively put candy into your, I'm not a huge fan of soda just because of the other issues that are other ingredients that are in there. Some of the preservatives and all that. You could argue that same thing with candy as well, but like with sodas, it's just, I know in the ultra running world, Coke is like king in a lot of those races because of the fact that it's just 40 grams of straight sugar in their system, and it just sometimes it feels a lot better. But yes, it does serve its purpose. I'm not saying that people can't have candy or baked goods or whatever during the rest of their day, because I'm one where I feel like it's been very demonized in the diet culture that candy's bad, it's awful for you, you have to go low sugar, no sugar, whatever. I'm saying it can serve a purpose. To demonize someone to having birthday cake, no, come on. Like it's celebratory in a lot of cultures, and so it serves a purpose there as well. But if it's taking the place of foundational nutrients, then that's where I'm like, that may not be as supportive. So if you're having like candy or sugary cereal for breakfast and that's filling your system and it's taking the place of getting protein or fiber, that's a problem, because now you're not getting that fiber or protein in because you've got the sugary candy or cereal in.
Yeah, I mean, nutrient density is something that I'm imagining you're gonna argue should be really what we're aiming for. So let's talk about some of those things. So we talked about breakfast, we talked about lunch and dinner. Mm-hmm. What are those foods that we need to be making sure, when you talk about the carbohydrates and things, I mean, you take potatoes and rice, and all these things have been demonized, through the years. But what are some of those things that we need to be including in our diets to make sure we're not only being healthy, but giving our body the nutrients that they need to be able to perform, to recover, and to be satiated?
Yeah. So you got to look at, one, we have 24 hours in a day to get 100% of the nutrients that we need. And so when you look at where are we getting those from, we need the proteins, the carbs, the fats, the vitamin A, the fiber, all of those different molecules and nutrients. We need to be getting those in. Where do we get those? It's from whole foods. So it's the, there's a number of ways to eat. And again, there's so many different things that we can, go down and talk about as far as like, well, you don't have to eat meat, or some people are fine being vegetarians and all that for various reasons. So it's hard to kind of umbrella it all because there are so many different eating types, but the main purpose of eating is to get 100% of the nutrients, or at least get as much as you can of the nutrients from the foods that your body needs every day. So those would be things that whatever protein source you choose to get it from, whether it's plant-based or animal-based or a combination of both, just get that. I don't care what form it is, just get that in. That is very vital. Carbohydrates are vital. Fats are vital because our bodies use those nutrients to balance hormones and to build muscle and to regulate digestion and regulate other systems in our body. So it's important at every meal, if you can, get some combination of those three, the macros, the carbs, the proteins, and the fats. Get some form of combination of those. Personally, I think most people do well if they focus on getting some sort of protein and some sort of color at every meal. Yeah. So what I mean by that is color as in fresh produce, fresh fruits, veggies, get some protein in there. You can add, that's where the carbohydrates can kind of be a little bit more tailored, because some people need more complex at certain times of the day. And so we're adding in, the brown rices and the quinoas and all that. And other people need a simple carb because they're about to go do a 9-mile run. And so we're getting in more of like the white bread bagel type of thing because it's going to be more instant release for them. So that's where you have a little bit of wiggle room. But generally speaking, most people need to be having protein and colors, because the colors are going to provide not only electrolytes, but also the micronutrients, the potassiums and the iron and all of that stuff that our body also needs to help recover and help to flush out inflammation and help to build tissue and regulate hormones and all of that. I don't know if that answered, because it's such a broad, question. It's hard to say.
And there's not again, and I think I'm a subscriber, and I would think probably you would be too, that your body, I think your body tells you. I mean, your body will tell you what your needs are if you really listen to it and pay attention to it, and it tells you how you're feeling, especially with, and as we inflammation, like I can tell. I mean, if I have and I'm more of a whole food eater. I mean, I try to eat whole foods, proteins with, whether it's animal, fish. Now they'll laugh at me, but I love sardines, and like sardines are so good for you, and they like look at me like I'm funny whenever I eat sardines.
So when anybody makes fun of them, we put some under their desk.
Yeah, I just leave an unopened. I leave a can open underneath their desk, and then sweet potatoes, regular potatoes, roasting them, and then trying to get as many vegetables, and fresh, the fresher the better. And would the whole food, I mean, and again, not to subscribe to any particular diet. I mean, there's a million of them out there, and they're called all kind of different things. But if we get as close to, and I hesitate to even say the word paleo, but as close to what the old folks used to eat, which was whatever was in season, and they were out hunting and gathering, those kind of things. Is that a pretty generalized safe place to start?
Yes and no. Because I feel like people gravitate towards rules and guidelines so much. But yes, getting more of the unprocessed foods the majority of the time, but that doesn't mean that processed foods are bad either. So there is a place for like pretzels or, something like that is a little bit more processed. But yes, I mean, if you're, and I think to back up too, I think to your point, it sounds like you get a good variety of foods, of different protein sources and different vegetables, but a lot of people do not get a good variety of anything. They stick with what they know. They might have like a protein shake and a protein bar and then a gel, and like that's not whole food.
Yeah.
So I think anybody who's listening can kind of do a self-assessment and just be like, how much do I rely on foods that are not in food form? They're not like, I don't go to the gel section and expect to find dinner. Like it's, what are you actually getting enough whole foods, and where are you lacking in that?
Hey, and maybe give a little bit of an explanation of why whole foods do matter. And I've done a little research in this. Obviously, nothing like what you know, but the more I've read and researched on whole foods, there are so many different. It's not like, I mean, if you look at a protein shake, okay, you look at the macros in that. You may look at them and be like, okay, this has got really good protein. Some of them will have carbs, but most of those protein shakes now is pretty much protein and that's it. I mean, there's a lot of them don't have hardly any carbohydrates to mention or fat to mention. And you may look at, that's good. It's protein, or some of them will have different vitamins and those kind of things in them. But those vitamins, my understanding is, and again, I'm no expert, but my understanding is that the vitamins, the trace minerals, all these other things, you just don't get those except for in the whole foods that are either you're digging out of the ground or from an animal or whatever that may be. Am I on base there?
I mean, they're manufactured. They're artificially put in there. It's not like a protein shake is going, or the powder that it's all processed. It's manufactured. They add in lab-derived versions of different minerals. For some, I mean, some of them are like, mushroom-based and all that, but for a lot of them, they add in B12 and they add in iron and they add in some of those things because it's not found naturally in the product. So if you were to pull something like spinach, for example, pull spinach from the plant, you're going to have nutrients in the form that your body can absorb better than in the lab-derived forms, which it takes more work to kind of break those down. You're not guaranteed to absorb all of that. It's a little bit harsher on the body to try and absorb some of that. So that's where the whole food kind of comes in, because certain nutrients do well with other nutrients as far as like how they're absorbed in the body. And so when you look at naturally derived grown foods, they already have the right combinations of those particular vitamins that are maximized for absorption. Versus in the lab, you don't always get that unless there's scientists that are really on it. But even then, they're artificial, so it can vary.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so let's talk about the event. And what I mean by the event, this is the workout. This is the run. So what are these time frames? We've all heard them a million different ways. Whether it's when do you start intaking specific things, and what are the things that are important before you run, during your run, and after your run?
Well, I mean, it's going to vary between females and males. A lot of men do better when they are having carbohydrates, 30, 45 grams, something like that, of carbohydrates within an hour or an hour and a half of workout or run or something. Females do better with protein, a little bit more protein within an hour and a half before a run. We can still have a little bit of carbohydrates, but we actually do a lot better when we have protein. And I think I've given this example. I don't know if we talked about it last time I was on, but that was a game changer for me. When I read that, or I saw a research article on that, I was like, I'm going to try that out. So instead of having, peanut butter toast or whatever before my run, I had a protein shake, which had like 25 grams of protein in it, plus whatever the milk was. And I felt so much better. I was able to perform better on those runs. And so that's my go-to now. So I tell all female athletes, make sure you're having something protein related before the event or before the workout.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah, and it just has to do with how our bodies utilize energy systems. I mean, there's a whole thing on that, but men just do better with carbohydrates for energy right before a workout like that, where females can kind of bounce back and forth between energy systems of using protein versus carbs versus fats and all that.
Okay, so now we're into the run, and I guess the question here would be, there's a lot of variables as far as the length of the run, the intensity level of the run, all those things. So if you can, as broadly as you can, speak to those and what we need to be, what and when we need to be taking in things, and if there are time frames where if it's under 45 minutes, you don't need to take in anything. Well, speak to that.
Okay. I think generally speaking, if it's 60 minutes is where I tend to tell people. So if it's under 60 minutes and it's just kind of like an easy run, water is probably fine. You probably aren't needing gels and all of that stuff. I kind of giggle. You can always kind of tell the newly runners who are excited to be out there, and they're like, I got all my gels. And I'm like, cool, how long are you running? They're like, 45 minutes. I'm like, you don't need that. But it's fine. You have it. It's great.
They've got on a camelback with,
right?
2 gallons of water.
They're at the 5K with the camelback.
We've all been there.
Yes, it's cute. It's fun. It's like, oh, you're so excited. How fun. So yeah, under 60 minutes. Now, again, if it's 95 degrees outside and you're running at 2 p.m., you may need an electrolyte. You might want to bring a gel just if you feel like you're crashing. It might be the difference for you. So that's a little bit of trial and error on each individual. Now, if it's between like 60 minutes, maybe an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, 60 to an hour and a half. That's when, especially even if you're running kind of at a moderate or lower to moderate pace, maybe you're doing like a slow, long run, you're probably going to need some carbohydrates, about 30 to 45 grams an hour or so. If that's really hard, if you're running hard, maybe 15 to 30. This is where I tell people we practice your nutrition. When you're out training, doing training runs, you're practicing for the race, you're practicing your nutrition too. So it might mean that I'm going to try with just 15 grams of carbohydrates every, 30 or 40 minutes or so and see how that does. If that didn't have an effect, then let's up it. One of those gels is going to have about 30 grams or so. So let's try that every 4 miles or whatever. So this is where there's a lot of trial and error for each individual. But generally speaking, about 30 to 45 grams per hour is kind of a starting point to go from. So that could come in the form of drinks, electrolyte drinks, so pay attention to that. It could come in the form of those chews or gels or, dried fruit or fruit in general, whatever you're able to carry with, or some people will do like a loop around their house and like just stop back at their house and have some watermelon or whatever. So again, huge trial and error with that and figuring out what fits well for you. I know personally, when it's cold outside, I can get by with only having a gel once every about 4.5 miles. But if it's really hot out, like now, I have to do it every 2. And that's just what works for me. And that keeps my energy high. It keeps me from feeling like I'm sluggish and dragging.
Nothing new on race day. Nothing new on race day.
No, try not to. I mean, if you know that the race, like if you're doing a marathon, know that at mile 18 or whatever, they're going to give out goo brand gels, then try and practice with goo brand gels, or just bring your own.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I wouldn't, just because your stomach can already be a mess from anxiousness, or just if it's hot out that day or whatever, it's not going to be fun to try throwing in different forms of carbohydrates in there as well to further that mess.
Okay. Now we're done with the run. What's the time window we need to be looking at to replenish ourselves and then start building for the next workout and the next day?
Yeah. I've seen a lot of different studies on this, and again, it's going to be different with every person. I think 30 to 60 minutes is ideal for most people, of getting in proteins and carbohydrates if you can. So that might be like you're going to have a protein shake and a bunch of crackers or something like that on your drive home. Or if you're able to actually sit down for a meal, that might be like a rice bowl with a bunch of veggies and chicken in it or something like that, or stir fry or something. A combination of carbohydrates and protein and colors, if you can, produce in some form, because again, that provides electrolytes. It provides anti-inflammatory nutrients. It's really crucial after a run.
And deep dive a little bit into what's actually happening during this time after you've had a workout, and specifically my harder workout, longer workout, what's happening in your body and how important getting that, getting those glycogen levels back up, but also jump into protein and kind of talk to us a little bit more about what's proteins, what is it literally doing inside of our body, and why is that so important for runners?
Yeah, so protein is, when you break it down, protein is a bunch of amino acid molecules stuck together. That's what protein is. So amino acids are the building blocks of tissue, and we need that when we exert our muscles and we use up all the energy in the muscles, and we're trying to restore those cells and build new muscle cells. It requires protein. It requires carbohydrates as well, but specifically protein. So we need to replenish and help give our bodies the building blocks to repair the micro tears in the muscles that we just put in our bodies from the exercise. The carbohydrates, yes, the glycogen stores. So glycogen is the stored form of glucose. So we have glucose in our bloodstream floating around as sugar. When we store that, our liver can store that, and our muscles can store that, and that is what our body draws on the next time that we're going to work out. So it's almost like giving yourself a boost for the next workout. When you can get the carbohydrates in post-workout, because it helps with those stores. And that's the goal of the carbohydrates in that moment, is to restore the glycogen that you tapped into during those workouts. So we store it in our liver, and we also store it in our muscles. So muscle glycogen is crucial to restore if you don't want to feel tired, or if you don't want to feel sluggish, you want to restore that muscle glycogen, which again is just the stored glucose.
So what's your thought on, there's exogenous ketones out there, people talking about fat adapted training, those kind of things. What's your thoughts on that? Because that's the exact opposite of what we're talking about, which is using that, using these sugars and carbohydrates to fuel your workouts. What's your thoughts on those two things?
Well, I haven't done enough research into the fat adaptive training. What I do know is that for women, training fasted without eating anything is one of the worst things. It does not promote fat loss. It does, at least long term, and it actually puts your body into a state of stress. And when you're an athlete, or even if you're just a weekend warrior athlete, you do not want to be in extra stress and extra, in that state, because that's what we're working hard to try and reverse is this inflammation. So for that, your body doesn't want to be starved of anything. It wants to be nourished, and it wants to have all the nutrients that it needs. Yeah. So with fasting and with the fat adaptive training, again, I haven't done enough research personally into those specific things as far as what the result would be. But I do know that it's a hormonal nightmare for women to run or exercise when they're fasting.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's another good thing. I think on our next podcast with you, we're going to talk specifically about females and the things, and again, we might have a couple of guests inside the on that show to be able to ask you some questions live and to talk through these things, because I do know it is it's just completely different than men, and unfortunately a lot of the information out there, it's better now, but a lot of the information, I think it is catered towards the male athlete, male runner, and there's two completely different things.
Well, and keep in mind too, like a lot of women, especially the pre and postmenopausal women who are experiencing different metabolic shifts, and they're seeing weight gain in places that they didn't have it before, especially around the midsection. So they think, okay, less is more as far as eating goes, and I need to exercise more. And there's this rumor that if I, go for a run and I don't eat anything beforehand, that I'll tap into fat stores and all that. And it just does not work that way for most women. I'm sure there's the one unicorn who's like, well, that's how I lost all my weight, whatever. But for the most women, it doesn't work that way. And if you think about it, especially the morning workouts, when you're already fasted from being overnight, your glycogen levels are already depleted just from fasting overnight. And then you expect your body to perform and tap into these resources that aren't there anymore. And now you're not able to contract the muscles efficiently and hard like you would if you had nutrients in there for it to draw from. So now your workout is maybe like a 70% where it could have been 100%.
Yeah. So
you're not getting as much of a burn and much of a muscle contraction and muscle deep workout simply because you didn't have any fuel to begin with. So that I tell a lot of women that because I'm like, just try it. See how much more you can lift. See how much further you can go. See how the run feels when you actually have some food in your system beforehand, because you're getting a more deeper, solid workout, in which in the long run boosts your metabolism, gives you the results you're looking for, all because like you're not fasting before you run or lift.
And I think there's a lot of our female listeners right now that are raising their hands saying, I get caught in that cycle where I'm trying to get this extra little bit off, or I'm trying to, this little area on my body, I want to be better. And so I'm trying to cut calories, and I'm cutting them out. And then my performance is going down. I don't feel good. And then I'm starving and I eat bad things, and it's just like this. They just get caught in this cycle, and I think there's a better way, and I think that would be really look forward to the next episode where we really dive into that, because I think that's an area that is just, it is like the Wild West out there on all these social media platforms, and you hear a million different things, but really just okay, what in these different stages of your life for females, what do you need to be putting in your body, and what do you need to, more specifically, what do you need to not do? What are the things you need to stay away from? And you just hit on one, which I think probably a lot of people do, because it would make sense. Well, you don't eat, you're coming off fasted. If you go and work out, well, then surely you're just going to burn fat, right? I mean, that's what would make sense, you would think, and that's not necessarily the case. In fact, it's not the case. And then that can just lead them down roads where they become frustrated. And
and a lot of women will say too, like, well, I just can't work out. And men too, they've said like, I can't work out if I have eaten something, or it sits on my stomach and I feel like I'm going to throw up or whatever. And I would say like 90% of the people, you can train your stomach. You can train your body to do better with food sources. If it's something that you just haven't done for years, or you've maybe never been a breakfast eater, or you've always worked out in the morning or whatever, you can train your system, but sometimes it just takes some intentional thought into what you're going to have. So that's where the protein shake, even half a protein shake, just start with that for a few weeks, and I'm going to do half a protein shake just to have the nutrients in, but it's not going to be heavy and sit on my stomach and cause me issues when I'm working out. So there's a transition period that can happen, because that's an excuse or a reason, I guess is a better term, for why people don't eat first thing in the morning if they work out. But I'm here to myth bust that, and we can work around that. There's definitely opportunity there.
Yep. Perfect. Well, Doc, as always, you've been a wealth of knowledge. And I think this is going to be very, very valuable for those that are, the first thing is for that heat, the advice on really regulating yourself during, this brutal heat of summer. But then what are the things we need to be eating? And what are the things, don't buy into some of the hypes that are out there on staying away from carbohydrates and the other. How do we nourish our bodies and really be healthy and take care of ourselves as we are out there? Because especially for running, there's no way around the fact that running is it is a tough sport. I mean, it is very hard on your body and everything about you. I mean, it's very hard on it, but a very, I hesitate to say enjoyable thing for those of us that continue to do it. We do get enjoyment out of it. Yeah, right. It's so much fun after we get done doing it. But you know, I think this will be very, very valuable to our listeners, and we really look forward to this new journey with you and having you on and talking about these things that are out there that are so important. And you know, I think the next one will definitely be, because I know we're going to be getting questions. I can probably hear them coming in right now, and some of the questions that'll be specifically for our female athletes in these different areas, in these different time frames of life, and what they need to be doing and looking out for. So again, remind everybody where they can find you and where they can find the food, everything they need to know about Food Factor Nutrition, all your information, and then we'll also post that in the show notes and include it on all of our social media.
Yeah, I'm at foodfactornutrition.com. I'm not super popular, super present on Instagram and all that. I try to post stuff every now and then. It's just not part of my day. But I'm on Instagram at Food Factor Nutrition and on Facebook at Food Factor Nutrition as well. And if you happen to be in kind of the Spartanburg, Boiling Springs area of the upstate, you can always come to Run Club. I co-host the New Groove Run Club on Monday nights at 6:15. And I tend to talk a lot when I run with people. I tend to talk about everything from digestive health to, carbs and all of that. But we have some good conversations on some of our runs for people who care to join that. And there's also a New Groove Run Club Facebook group as well that you can join and see all that we're doing as well.
I hear it's the grooviest run club in
Like
Spartanburg.
We are pretty groovy.
Pretty groovy. And you never have to worry about, I never have to worry about listening to her talk the whole time in the thing, because I can't keep up with her.
There you go.
Or her whole family who won all the awards at I thought, for my age group, I think I got a shot of at least being in the top 3, because I had a pretty good run for myself. And they started calling them out, and they called the third place, and I was like, nope, I missed it again. So
your age group is tough, though. You have some speedy guys in your group.
I know. I'm gonna start working a day or two before, and maybe getting some of them not to show up, sending them somewhere else, so I can have a piece of the pie. But hey, Doc, thanks so much for being on with us. We'll share all your information, and ladies, our next one will be on female nutrition and all the different intricacies of there, and we'll have one or two guests. We'll have one or two ladies on during that podcast to pick the brain of the good doctor, and it's going to be a really cool thing. And glad we've got an expert on that's going to be coming on regularly to share your knowledge. And I would just encourage you, if this is something you want to dive deeper into, get a little bit more one-on-one help, reach out to her. She'd be glad to talk to you and help you on your journey, and maybe getting some direction, because it is confusing. It can be a wilderness out there, and sometimes it's good just to have a guide to help you do those things. So on behalf of Dr. Mahacek, I say it right every time.
You got it.
I got it down. And my co-host, Jed Blackwell, this is Kevin Harrison, reminding you, if you will do the hard things today, tomorrow will take care of itself.